Seconds before takeoff, a police dog suddenly burst into the aircraft cockpit, refusing to back down despite his handler's commands. When he forced his way into a sealed maintenance panel, what they found hidden inside left even the veteran pilot in shock and could have cost the lives of everyone on board. Want to know what really happened? First, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. That being said, let's get into it. Officer Noah Vance adjusted his tactical vest in the dimly lit corridor of Chicago O'Hare's Terminal 3. The early morning hours meant fewer travelers, but the stakes couldn't have been higher. At his side, Blitz maintained perfect heel position, the Belgian Malinois' dark eyes scanning constantly, ears pivoting to catch sounds imperceptible to human hearing. "You feeling this one too, boy?" Vance murmured, receiving a quick glance from his partner before Blitz resumed his vigilant watch. 3 years together had forged a connection deeper than words, a silent communication system built on mutual trust and countless hours of training. Before joining the Chicago Airport Police K-9 unit, Vance had served 8 years with military police, including 2 tours in Afghanistan, where he'd worked with tactical K-9 teams. The transition to civilian law enforcement had been natural, though the stakes remained just as high, especially today. "Officer Vance!" The voice belonged to Captain Rivera, approaching with a tablet in hand. "Marshal Lawson's team is assembling at Checkpoint B. They want your final security assessment before beginning transport." Vance nodded. "We're heading there now. Final sweep of the secure corridor is complete." As they approached Checkpoint B, Vance spotted U.S. Marshal Harper Lawson briefing her team. Tall and imposingly professional, Lawson had a reputation for flawless witness transport operations. Today's assignment would test even her impressive record. "Officer Vance, glad you made it!" Marshal Lawson extended her hand. Her grip was firm, her expression conveying the gravity of their assignment. "Today's transport requires absolute vigilance. We've had 2 previous attempts on Colin's life, and intelligence suggests Fisk's organization is desperate to silence him before tomorrow's testimony." Vance nodded, studying the tactical map displayed on Lawson's tablet. "What's our route to the aircraft?" "Service Corridor E to the South Jetway," Lawson replied, tracing the path on the screen. "We've had it cleared and secured for the past hour." Lawson directed Vance's attention to a slim man in his 40s, seated in the adjacent secure room, visible through a reinforced window. James Collins appeared deceptively ordinary, thinning brown hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the slouched posture of someone who'd spent decades at a desk. Hard to believe this accountant held the key to bringing down Wilson Fisk's entire operation. "Collins worked as Fisk's financial advisor for 12 years, Lawson explained quietly. "He's got documented evidence of money laundering operations across 3 states, plus connections to at least 4 murders ordered by Fisk personally. His testimony tomorrow morning is the linchpin in the federal case." "And Fisk's people know it," Vance observed. "Exactly. They've already gotten to 1 witness. Collins is all we have left." Lawson checked her watch. "United Flight 1123 departs at 0845. We board first ahead of regular passengers and secure Collins in first class. You and your K-9 will be positioned in the forward cabin area throughout the flight." The weather report added another layer of concern. "That's our secondary issue," Lawson frowned. "Storm system moving in along the west coast. San Francisco Airport could see reduced operations tonight. That's why we can't afford any delays on this end. If this flight gets pushed back, we risk not making it before the airport closes." "We'll get him there," Vance assured her, feeling Blitz press subtly against his leg, the dog's way of communicating readiness. "Let's proceed with the final security sweep." The Boeing 737 waited at Gate E-17, temporarily cordoned off from regular airport operations. Captain Cameron Steele stood in the cockpit doorway, reviewing flight plans as Vance and Blitz approached. "Officer Vance, Chicago K-9 unit," he introduced himself, showing his credentials. "We need to conduct a complete security sweep before the special transport team boards." Steele nodded curtly. A veteran pilot with salt and pepper hair and the confident bearing of someone who'd logged over 15,000 flight hours, he projected calm authority despite the unusual circumstances. "My crew has been informed of the security protocols," Steele replied, "though I must emphasize we're operating under weather constraints today. San Francisco is expecting severe conditions by evening. Any delay could result in diverted landing. Understood, Captain. We'll be efficient but thorough. Vance and Blitz began their methodical sweep of the aircraft, starting from the rear galley and working forward. As they approached the front of the aircraft, Vance noticed a subtle change in Blitz's demeanor. Nothing dramatic, just a slight stiffening in the dog's shoulders, a marginally more intense focus as they neared the cockpit area. "Something interest you, boy?" he murmured, giving Blitz the subtle hand signal to investigate more thoroughly. The Malinois sniffed more deliberately around the forward bulkhead and cockpit entrance, but after a moment, he continued forward without alerting. Vance made a mental note, but didn't halt the inspection. They completed the cabin inspection and moved into the cockpit, where First Officer Teresa Liu was completing pre-flight systems checks. "We need a few minutes in here," Vance explained. Liu nodded and stepped out, leaving Vance and Blitz alone in the compact space. Again, the Malinois showed subtle interest in the area behind the captain's seat, sniffing intently along the floor and wall panels. "Check it, Blitz," Vance commanded, using the formal instruction for a more detailed assessment. Blitz examined the area thoroughly, but ultimately sat back on his haunches without giving his alert signal. Vance ran his hands along the panels, finding nothing unusual. Captain Steele returned as they were finishing. "All clear?" he asked, checking his watch with barely concealed impatience. "Appears so," Vance replied, though something about Blitz's interest nagged at him. "We'll need one more walkthrough after the passenger boards." "Officer, I understand the security concerns, but we're on a tight schedule," Steele said, gesturing to the darkening skies visible through the windows. "Weather system's moving faster than predicted. We need to push back within the hour to ensure we beat the storm to San Francisco." The weather update arrived just as Marshal Lawson was preparing to move Collins from the secure room to the aircraft. "San Francisco, now expecting severe conditions by 1800 hours Pacific," her assistant reported. "Airport authorities are warning of potential closure for all but emergency traffic if the system intensifies as predicted." Lawson's expression remained neutral, but Vance noticed the slight tightening of her jaw. The window for getting Collins to San Francisco was narrowing by the minute. Collins approached, escorted by two deputy marshals. Up close, the accountant looked even more stressed, his complexion pallid, eyes darting nervously around the secure area. "Is there a problem with the flight?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "I heard something about weather." "We're monitoring the situation, Mr. Collins," Lawson assured him. "Our priority is getting you to San Francisco safely and on time." The small procession moved through the service corridor toward the jetway. Blitz walked ahead with Vance, the dog's posture alert but calm as they approached the aircraft again. As they neared the plane, Captain Steele emerged from the cockpit to meet them at the entrance. "Marshal Lawson," he greeted her, then nodded to Collins. "We're ready for priority boarding, but I need to brief you on our situation. Latest weather models show the storm intensifying. Our departure window is critical. If we miss it, we risk diversion to Oakland or Sacramento." As they conversed, Vance noticed Blitz's attention shift back toward the cockpit area, his ears pricking forward, nostrils flaring slightly as he processed scents undetectable to humans. Collins was escorted to his first-class seat by Deputy Marshal Rodriguez, while Lawson took position in the aisle seat beside him. Two additional marshals were strategically placed in the cabin, maintaining sightlines to all entrances. Vance positioned Blitz near the front of the cabin, the Malinois sitting alertly beside the bulkhead that separated the passenger cabin from the cockpit. "We'll begin general boarding in 15 minutes, the lead flight attendant informed them. "Captain Steele has requested an expedited process due to our weather situation." Vance nodded acknowledgement, but his attention was on Blitz. The dog's eyes kept returning to the cockpit door, his body language showing increasing tension. "I need to check something in the cockpit," Vance told Lawson, approaching where she sat beside Collins. "Blitz is showing continued interest." Lawson glanced at her watch. "Make it quick. General boarding starts soon." Captain Steele was reviewing flight plans when Vance knocked on the cockpit door. The pilot's expression tightened visibly when he saw the officer in K9 again. "Officer Vance, we're in final pre-flight procedures," Steele said, not bothering to hide his frustration. The tower has just confirmed our departure slot is at risk due to increasing traffic. I understand the pressure, Captain, but my partner is consistently showing interest in this area. I need to conduct a more thorough inspection. Steele stepped into the doorway, partially blocking entry. Officer, I've been flying for 23 years. This aircraft was secured overnight and has passed multiple inspections. There comes a point where a security theater interferes with operational safety. That storm system won't wait for us. First Officer Liu looked up from her preparations. Captain, maybe we should let them check. Better safe than sorry. Steele exhaled sharply. 5 minutes, officer. Not a second more. Vance entered with Blitz, who immediately moved toward the rear wall of the cockpit behind the captain's seat. The dog's interest was now unmistakable, his nose working intently along the seam of an access panel. What's behind this panel? Vance asked, kneeling beside his partner. Electrical access for cockpit systems, Liu replied. It's not normally opened except during maintenance. Vance ran his fingers along the edge of the panel. Has this been accessed recently? Not to my knowledge, Steele replied, watching with growing impatience. Maintenance log shows the last electrical work was 3 weeks ago. From the cabin came the sound of the boarding announcement. General passengers would begin entering the aircraft within minutes. Captain, my K-9 is indicating potential concern, Vance said firmly. Under federal aviation security regulations, I have authority to inspect any area of concern, including access panels. Steele and Liu exchanged glances. This is highly irregular, Steele maintained, but reached for the cockpit phone. I'll contact maintenance control for proper documentation before you open anything. As he dialed, Vance noticed something subtle, a barely perceptible indentation along one edge of the panel, as though it had been recently removed and replaced. The installation screws, while appearing normal at first glance, showed minute tool marks that suggested recent manipulation. Captain, Vance said, voice lowering, I believe this panel has been tampered with. Before Steele could respond, a message came through from ground operations, announcing the weather situation had deteriorated further and their departure window was now critical. Officer, we need to make a decision, Steele said, covering the phone mouthpiece. Either this is a legitimate security concern, or we need to commence boarding immediately. Vance looked at Blitz, whose focused attention on the panel had not wavered. Years of training and partnership had taught him one inviolable rule: trust your dog. Hold boarding, Vance said firmly. We need to inspect this panel now. Absolutely not. Captain Steele's voice hardened as he replaced the cockpit phone. You're asking me to delay a critical departure based on your dog's unsubstantiated interest in a standard access panel. The cockpit door opened as Marshal Lawson appeared, immediately sensing the tension. What's the situation? Officer Vance wants to delay boarding to disassemble cockpit components based on his dog's behavior, Steele explained. Meanwhile, ground control informs me we're now facing potential slot cancellation if we don't commence boarding immediately. Lawson turned to Vance. Is this a confirmed threat detection? Not a standard alert, Vance acknowledged, but Blitz's focused behavior is consistent with detected anomalies. Something about this panel is triggering his interest. Something, maybe nothing, Steele countered. Dogs can react to all sorts of benign stimuli, residual scents from maintenance workers, cleaning compounds, even rodents in the terminal that passed through earlier. Marshal Lawson, Vance said carefully, I've worked with Blitz for 3 years. He doesn't fixate like this without legitimate cause. Lawson glanced at her watch, then through the cockpit windows where the gathering storm clouds darkened the horizon. Officer Vance, I understand your concern, but our primary mission is getting Collins to that courthouse tomorrow. Every minute we delay increases the risk of missing our window. What about a compromise? First Officer Liu suggested. Officer Vance inspects the panel while boarding proceeds. If nothing is found in the next 10 minutes, we continue with departure as scheduled. Lawson nodded slowly. That seems reasonable. Officer Vance? Vance looked down at Blitz, still focused intently on the panel. I'll need maintenance tools and assistance. I'll have someone bring them immediately, Lou offered. Steele's expression remained stony, but he nodded curtly. 10 minutes, officer. Not a second more. After that, we're proceeding with departure, regardless. As Lou called for maintenance assistance, Vance knelt beside his partner. Show me what you found, boy, he whispered. Blitz maintained his unwavering focus on the panel, reinforcing Vance's conviction that something wasn't right. Maintenance arrived with a toolbox, and Vance accepted a screwdriver. The access panel's screws turned easily. Too easily, Vance noted. Properly secured aircraft components typically require deliberate effort to loosen after pressurization cycles. These moved as though they'd been recently manipulated. Stand back, Vance instructed as he prepared to remove the panel. Blitz maintained his position, body tense with anticipation. The panel came away smoothly, revealing a compartment approximately 2 feet square, filled with bundles of color-coded wiring, circuit breakers, and control modules. At first glance, everything appeared normal, exactly what you'd expect to find in an aircraft electrical access point. Satisfied? Captain Steele asked from where he stood by the cockpit door. Vance didn't respond immediately, studying the compartment, while Blitz sniffed intently at the opening. The beam of Vance's light swept the interior of the access space, illuminating the corners not easily visible from the front. Something caught his attention, a slight discoloration along the back panel, a section where the metal seemed newer than surrounding areas. This back panel doesn't match, Vance observed, pointing with his light. See how the finish is slightly different? Lou leaned in, professional curiosity overcoming her initial skepticism. You're right, that section looks modified. It's a maintenance repair, Steele dismissed. Aircraft components get replaced all the time. Except there's no documentation of rear panel replacement in the maintenance log you mentioned earlier, Vance pointed out. Blitz suddenly gave a soft whine, a sound Vance had heard only during training when the dog detected something significant but couldn't reach it. The Malinois pawed at the edge of the opening, trying to indicate something beyond his physical reach. I need to check behind this panel, Vance stated, reaching deeper into the compartment to examine the suspicious section. Absolutely not, Steele objected. That would require disassembly of critical aircraft systems. Only certified maintenance personnel are authorized. Before he could finish, Blitz suddenly lunged forward, barking sharply, his first vocalization since boarding the aircraft. The abrupt change from subtle indication to aggressive alert startled everyone in the cockpit. What the hell? Steele exclaimed, stepping back. Vance knew this behavior. It was the escalation protocol Blitz had been trained to use when a potential threat became imminent. Not just detection, but urgent warning. Everyone out of the cockpit now, Vance ordered, his tone shifting to command authority. Marshal Lawson, we need to halt boarding immediately. On what grounds? Steele demanded. Your dog barking at wiring? First Officer Lou, who had been examining the panel more closely, suddenly gasped. There's something behind the wiring. I can just see the edge of it. In a split-second decision, Vance released Blitz's leash, giving the command that authorized autonomous action. Blitz, find it! The Belgian Malinois lunged forward with precision, forcing his head and shoulders into the compartment, powerful body twisting to access what humans couldn't reach. His determined barking echoed through the cockpit as the panel at the back of the compartment suddenly gave way under his pressure. The back panel clattered to the floor as Blitz forced his way deeper into the compartment, his barking now continuous and urgent. The sudden exposure of the hidden space beyond revealed what the dog had been detecting all along. A cramped maintenance passage, barely visible behind the electrical components, and within it, the unmistakable form of a man. Federal officer, don't move, Vance shouted, drawing his sidearm in one fluid motion. Behind him, Marshal Lawson responded instantly, her own weapon appearing as she ordered the cockpit cleared. The hidden figure unfurled from an impossibly compact position, revealing a wiry man who had somehow contorted himself into a space not meant for human occupancy. As he struggled to orient himself, his shoulder visibly dislocated, the joint grotesquely out of alignment from the extended compression. Hands where I can see them, Vance commanded. Instead of complying, The man's right hand darted toward his waistband. Blitz reacted instantly, launching himself forward with explosive power, clamping powerful jaws onto the man's reaching arm. The suspect screamed as Blitz's trained grip immobilized him, preventing him from reaching what was now clearly visible, a compact semi-automatic pistol tucked in his waistband. "Gun!" Vance shouted, maintaining aim while reaching to secure the weapon. The suspect thrashed against Blitz's grip, but the Malinois held firm, trained to maintain his hold until commanded to release. Captain Steele stood frozen at the cockpit entrance, face drained of color, as the scene unfolded before him. "What the hell is this?" he managed, voice barely audible over the commotion. With Blitz maintaining control of the suspect's arm, Vance quickly secured the weapon, passing it to Lawson while maintaining verbal command of his K-9 partner. "Good hold, Blitz! Maintain!" "Alexander Petrov," Lawson stated, recognition dawning in her eyes. "He matches the description of a known Fisk associate, suspected involvement in 3 previous witness eliminations." Airport security and additional marshals converged on the cockpit, alerted by the radio calls. As they secured the area, Vance maintained control of Blitz and the suspect. "Release on command only, Blitz," Vance reminded his partner, who maintained the perfect pressure to immobilize without causing unnecessary injury. Years of bite training ensured the dog understood exactly how much force to apply. Enough to control, not to maim. As additional officers secured Petrov's legs and free arm, Vance finally gave the release command. "Blitz, release." The Malinois immediately opened his jaws and backed away, maintaining alert watch on the suspect now being fully restrained by human officers. The evacuation alarm sounded throughout the aircraft as Lawson coordinated the controlled removal of Collins and other passengers already boarded. Captain Steele remained at the cockpit entrance, shock giving way to disbelief as he processed what had transpired. "How did he get in there? That space is barely big enough for maintenance access," Steele asked, professional composure temporarily shattered. As medical personnel arrived to secure Petrov for transport, Vance examined the hidden compartment more closely. The space revealed evidence of careful preparation. The back panel had been modified for quick removal and replacement. The surrounding structure subtly altered to create just enough space for a human to hide if they were willing to endure extreme physical discomfort. Vance noticed specialized padding with thermal insulation lining the compartment, designed to mask both body heat and sound. The craftsmanship was exceptional, the work of someone with intimate knowledge of aircraft design and security protocols. "This isn't amateur work," Vance observed, pointing out several nearly invisible modifications to the surrounding structure. "Look at how he redirected these non-essential wiring bundles to create more space without disturbing critical systems, and these sound-dampening materials would have masked any movement or breathing once in flight." One of the security technicians whistled softly. He even installed a miniature air circulation system tapped into the existing ventilation. This guy could have remained hidden for hours without detection. Vance nodded grimly, which is exactly what he was planning. Wait until they were at cruising altitude, when the cockpit would be at its most vulnerable. He dislocated his own shoulder to fit, the responding medic confirmed, examining Petrov's injury. "Probably trained in contortion techniques. We've seen this before with infiltration specialists, people who can get into spaces that should be physically impossible for human entry." The airport's secure conference room had been transformed into an impromptu command center with representatives from the FBI, U.S. Marshal Service, and airport security gathered around evidence displays. Security footage from airport cameras showed Petrov's movements over the preceding days. Dressed as a maintenance worker with perfectly forged credentials, he had accessed the aircraft during routine service, spending nearly 3 hours in the cockpit area. He modified the access panel during scheduled maintenance, FBI Special Agent Ramirez explained, created a hidden space by repositioning non-critical components, then returned yesterday during the night shift and concealed himself inside hours before the flight was scheduled to depart. "How did he know Collins would be on that specific flight?" Captain Steele asked. He had been asked to remain for the briefing, given his aircraft had been compromised. Marshal Lawson frowned. That's our biggest concern. Flight arrangements were made under deep cover protocols. Route information was strictly compartmentalized, which suggests a leak, Vance observed. Beside him, Blitz lay at rest but alert, occasionally scanning the room. We're investigating all personnel with access to the transport details, Lawson confirmed grimly. Until we identify the source, we have to assume our security is compromised. And the weapon? Lawson asked. Compact 9mm with specialized polymer components to minimize metal detection, Ramirez replied. Plus a ceramic blade concealed in his boot. He came prepared for a close-quarters operation. Based on preliminary questioning and the materials found with Petrov, we believe the plan was to take control of the aircraft once at cruising altitude, eliminate Collins, and then potentially force a crash scenario, Ramirez continued. A collective silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. He would have sacrificed everyone on board just to eliminate one witness, Captain Steele said quietly. That's Fisk's methodology, Collins spoke up for the first time, his voice thin but steady. Total elimination of problems, regardless of collateral damage. I've seen the financial records where he authorized cleanup operations that resulted in entire families being eliminated just to silence one person. 6 hours after the discovery of Alexander Petrov, James Collins was secured in an armored SUV, part of a heavily guarded convoy departing O'Hare via Service Road. The new transportation plan, developed and executed within hours, would get the witness to his court appearance without using commercial airlines. We'll have helicopters support the entire route, Marshal Lawson explained to Vance as they watched the convoy depart, plus additional ground teams at predetermined checkpoints. He'll make it to San Francisco in time. Captain Steele approached them, having spent the past hours cooperating with the investigation team examining his aircraft. The veteran pilot looked exhausted but resolute. Officer Vance, he said, extending his hand. I need to apologize properly for my resistance earlier. You were doing your job, and I let operational pressures cloud my judgment. Vance accepted the handshake. You were focused on your responsibilities too, Captain. Weather concerns are legitimate safety issues. Perhaps, but I should have trusted your expertise and your partners. Steele looked down at Blitz, who sat attentively beside Vance. 23 years flying, and I've never encountered anything like this. The idea that someone could hide in my aircraft in a space I check daily. Lawson's phone buzzed with an update. Petrov's talking, she informed them after reading the message. Limited cooperation, but he's confirmed Fisk personally ordered the operation. Apparently the organization has someone inside the Marshal Service. That's how they knew Collins' travel plans. In the K-9 unit station, Vance finally removed Blitz's tactical vest, signaling the end of their duty shift. The Malinois immediately relaxed his professional posture, circling twice before settling on his designated rest mat. From his pocket, Vance produced Blitz's favorite reward, a specialized rubber toy that he only received after successful mission completions. Blitz accepted it with uncharacteristic enthusiasm, the day's tension visibly leaving his powerful frame as he chewed contentedly. Vance smiled, watching his partner transition from the disciplined professional to the more playful aspect of his personality that emerged only in these private moments. Captain Steele appeared at the doorway, having tracked them down after completing his own debriefing. I hope I'm not intruding, he said. I wanted to see how your partner was doing after his heroics. Wind down time, Vance explained. After high-intensity work, it's important for him to decompress. Steele watched the powerful dog with newfound respect. You know, as pilots, we trust our instruments implicitly. Years of training teach us that when the gauges tell us something, we believe it without question. Today I learned that sometimes the most reliable instrument doesn't have a digital display. It has 4 legs and remarkable instincts. Have you ever witnessed a working dog in action at an airport or public event? Their abilities to detect what humans cannot is truly remarkable, from explosives and narcotics to hidden people and even medical conditions. What amazed you most about what these incredible animals can do? If you were Officer Vance, would you have trusted your canine partner's instincts, even when everyone was doubting you and pressuring you to follow procedure? It takes extraordinary confidence to stand your ground when time is critical and authorities are pushing for a different course of action. If you enjoyed this incredible canine hero story, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales of four-legged heroes in action. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss our new uploads. Share this video with friends and family who appreciate the remarkable abilities of working dogs and the dedicated handlers who partner with them. Our previous Canine Hero videos are appearing on your screen right now. Check them out next. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with a brand new video.